Avante, welcome to a short-ish, interesting modelling company pop-up live tonight. We're going to try and keep it brief because I want to keep some stuff for Sunday night. Exciting things. But we're going to do tonight, and what we're going to talk about is the Zvezda 72nd scale Snap Fit Hurricane Mark II, which this arrived this morning via the very good offices of Mr. Andrew Hills of Antics, and we'll put the address up for Antics later on. But this is one of their simplified Snap Fit kits, but just because it's simplified, do not confuse with crude, because this is anything other than. As you can see, it has, actually, for a Snap Fit kit, it still has 51 parts there. And it has decals for RAF and Soviet schemes. So less of me yakking. Let's have a look at what's in the box. I've already opened this up today and had a quick look, but we have one sprue with the upper wing molded as one half, as well as the lower wing. This is quite normal for Hurricane kits. This is quite unusual. I can only think of 3 other kits that have done it this way. I think the old Keelcraft kit did it as a single wing. The very old Airfix Mark IV did it as a single wing, and the very old Revell kit did it as well. So this is nice. This simplifies construction considerably. Cannons are molded fully to the leading edge there, and that's top and bottom. So there's going to be a little bit of cleanup on the mold part lines, but rather neatly, the leading edge is actually rolled over, so there isn't actually a seam to deal with on the actual leading edge, and then you just pop that lower wing in. We will see how that actually works in practice. You also have a nice boxed in wheelbase here as well. Some detail in there, nothing major, but this is a kind of like a budget 72nd scale kit. The cockpit, which we'll come to on the instructions, has actually got quite some quite nice detail, as are the undercarriage legs, are nicely molded and quite complex for something which is effectively a kind of snap together kit for the less experienced or the younger modeler. Instrument panel is actually molded with raised detail. We will be taking photographs and putting them up on the page over the weekend. The wheels are molded in one part and actually have some tread detail on. I'm not entirely sure whether that's appropriate for a lot of versions, but we'll come back to that. And the panel lines are beautifully crisp. These are absolutely superb. I don't know if you can pick that up in the image there, but they're very, very nice, very sharp, and also of a depth which is going to hold a wash. One of the criticisms I've had of some of Zvezda's kits, aircraft kits in the past, is their panel lines can be very fine. Certainly on the Stuka, they were at a point that they started fading in and out. But these have kind of taken a leaf out of Tamiya's book, and these are actually really nice and sharp. So very impressed with that. Then we move on to the fuselage. Now, from what I understand from doing some very quick measurements here and having a quick read round, is it appears that Zvezda have got the length of the fuselage correct for a Mark II. The Revell kit, I seem to remember their 72nd scale one they did in the late 1980s was actually a little bit short somewhere on the fuselage. But this appears to be spot on. Like I say, it's only been like a rough measurement, but there is nothing kind of untoward that leaps out initially that they've managed to kind of like goof up on the on the basic dimensions of the fuselage. There is one interesting thing which I'm just grabbing the photographs to put online there. Nothing like organization, and trust me, this is nothing like organization. But I don't know if you can see on the, if I tilt it there are 2 very pronounced raised ribs on the fuselage. We did comment on them when we initially saw the test shots. You can see it running along there. we did comment on initially when we saw the test shots, and then when we saw the first, the CAD renders, when we saw the first test shots, again, we had a look at it and thought, okay, you know, what's going on there? And I think you can, yeah, you can just about see it on this CAD render here. Now, I had a word with Matt Whiting at Hornby, because he's the chap who designed all the Airfix Hurricanes in recent times, the Mark 1 and the 48 scale kits. And he said that he thinks what they've picked up on are these two kind of longerons on the fuselage, the stringers rather, and they've seen them as being slightly kind of proud of the surface. They're not. They are actually kind of pretty much blending in with the rest of the fabric surfaces on the rear of the Hurricane, and they are kind of these stringers here. So it could be, it might be that Zvezda looked at an aircraft that might have had the fabric covering incorrectly applied, or you know, their designers have just misinterpreted something. Either way, it is noticeable. How noticeable it's going to be under a coat of paint or a coat of primer, we'll wait and see. It's not a deal breaker, but it is a detail that is worth mentioning. Again, panel line details and the fastener details on the nose, this is really sharp. This is going to hold a wash beautifully. And this is the kind of model that what it lacks in terms of greater detail and finesse compared to a standard kit, although not by much, it's one of these ones that you can kind of like throw together and start painting and weathering within a couple of days. And yeah, I'm looking forward to building a couple of these actually. Tail surfaces are in one part as well. And it has to be said, for the most part, the fabric effect on the rear fuselage is really subtly done, as is the stuff on the tail surfaces and the rudder. It's actually really quite fine. Couple of other things to comment on, which kind of like slightly weigh against the kit. You know, minus points. The spinner is decidedly a little bit blunt, and you can see it on the CAD render here, whether this is the model or a CAD render. It's just not, there's something not quite right about it. It's just not pointed enough. Whether that can be corrected with a bit of sanding, we will have to wait and see. Similarly, I've seen some criticisms of the shape of the prop blades. I would need to really go in with a set of decent drawings and measurements here to have a look at them and see what exactly is going on. Likewise, I've seen some talk about the width of the rear fuselage and how some of the contours meet between the fabric and metal areas. Again, I'm going to wait to see what it looks like once I actually get it together. Rather nice thing that they do is they give you two complete multi-part pilot figures here, one Royal Air Force and one Soviet Air Force. I don't think I've ever seen a kit where they've actually supplied you with two completely different pilot figures, so that's very nice. Another criticism I've seen is apparently the oil cooler may not be right for a Mark II, and again, it could have been that Zvezda have had a look at a restored aircraft or a warbird where that detail isn't quite right. Another nice touch is they've done the flaps as a separate piece, which just plug into the trailing edge of the wing. And even the undercarriage legs, which for the gear up version, which have got the wheels molded in place, the detail on them is really sharp. You know, really, really impressed with this. Likewise, the detail on the radiator as well, on the radiator. So some pluses, some minuses. Overall, they're things that I can work with, I can live with. Nothing major. With a little bit more care and attention, there are things that could probably have not been apparent. Certainly the spinner. But other than that, I really like this, and I'm really looking forward to cracking on with this over the weekend to see how quickly it goes together. And hopefully by Sunday's show, we might have a completed model, perhaps even covered in primer. Another thing to comment about, and it's probably still in the box, is the canopy. And apparently Zvezda have not quite got the shape of the canopy right. They've seemingly got the rails as parallel here, where actually they're not. They actually kind of taper in order to slide over the rear fuselage. Nothing, kind of majorly, I'm not really going to worry about that for a kit of this price bracket, which we'll come to in a minute. But again, it is something worth commenting on. Frame lines are quite nice, although the canopy is a bit thick and a little bit distorted. But again, I'm not exactly going to really lose any sleep over this. Other than that, it's very sharply done. We will come to the decal sheet, of which Zvezda offer you 3 schemes, which we'll go through, and they are a rather natty Soviet one, Russian one in camo, which I can't have a look at this. This might be the one I go for. And then Royal Air Force One from number 1 Squadron in the temperate land scheme with ocean grey, dark green and medium sea grey with sky codes and a sky band. And then a night fighter, which they described as being from the 1st UK Air Force, but a little bit of work on the translations here, and I think we know what they're talking about. Very nicely done. The decals are very nicely done, but slight misinterpretation here, because they've given the night fighter sky codes when they really should be either medium sea grey or red, and I seem to remember they were probably medium sea grey. So I think they've misinterpreted a colour photograph there, and what they've also tried to do is give you a single JX code for the leading part of the code letter, and then just change the ones at the end. It doesn't quite work that way, because these do need to be a different colour. Other than that, they're actually nicely printed. The yellow, let's just get it again. The yellow is a little bit lemony, perhaps not as rich and gold as it could be, but it's livable. Certainly the proportions look fine, and the colours of the dull red and the dull blue are nicely done. And in fact, rather than kind of like trying to fudge it and do the red of the stars as the same with the red of the RAF round, or vice versa, they actually have printed 2 separate reds. And the stencils are quite nicely done as well. There's a good amount there. So, and a decal for you can lay over the instrument panel. So that's a nice touch. If I were to do the night fighter one, which I'm very tempted to, because it offers a nice weathering kind of challenge, I would probably go in there and print out my own masks and spray and mask those. But I don't know. I'm really taken with the Russian one, which kind of reminds me of one of those Hamlin books that I had as a kid, and seeing a Hurricane in completely different markings to an RAF one, and it was a Russian one. So it's a bit of a throwback to that, really. So I'm not sure what scheme I'm going to do, but it's either going to be that one or the night fighter. But my past experience with Zvezda decals is they do stick, and they do like glossy surfaces, but you have to really wet the surface, because once they go on, they want to stay there. So, and then we'll just have a quick whiz through the instruction sheet. And as I say, they give you 2 versions there. As I say, some nice detail inside the wheelbase. There are the flaps, sorry, the ailerons. I said flaps, sorry. Ailerons that plug in there. And then everything kind of lops in there. The wing lights are secured. That goes in there. The idea is that you can actually assemble this without without gluing. It's been a long day, but I will be gluing it as I go along. The cockpit is actually quite nicely done. They do mold some detail, basic shapes inside. It's not going to win any awards, but given that the canopy is closed, it's going to do the job. Tail is trapped by the rudder, which is a nice touch. Might need a smidge of Mr. Surfacer to hide the join, but I'm not anticipating any problems. As I say, 2 pilot figures, 1 Russian, 1 RAF. And then a gear up and a gear down option, which is nicely done. And then just the general stuff there for the stencil. So overall, given the price, and this is where we come to the meat and potatoes, I had a word with Andy from Antics, and he said they're selling them for about £8.50, which is a pretty good price for a 72nd scale aircraft kit in 2021. Yeah, it is slightly simplified, but as I say, do not confuse simplified with crude, because the parts count for this is probably about normal for a 72nd scale Hurricane. It's, like I say, there are a couple of problem areas, namely those stringers on the fuselage, the shape of the spinner, and there might be, and the canopy, and also there might be some geometry problems around the back end. But having built kind of Hurricanes right down the years, there are problems, and then there are problems, and there are some I'm quite happy to live with. I think the most important thing is, and in fact we'll quickly cut back to the workshop camera. I think the most important thing is they appear to have got the width of the nose correct, which is something that always blights a lot of Hurricane kits, is having a nose that is far too skinny. And essentially you've got to imagine fitting a Merlin engine inside that. It's one of the things, again, talking to Matt Whiting at Hornby, that's one of the things he's always done whenever he's designed anything that has a Merlin engine fighter. He's actually always taken the dimensions of the Merlin engine in 72nd scale or 48 scale or whatever the scale is, and uses that as the baseline to make sure that anything he then builds on top will actually fit around that Merlin. And I can think of some very nice Hurricane kits. The Heller one from the 70s, very nicely done. Fuselage is too narrow around the nose. The Academy kit, beautifully molded, too narrow. The Matchbox kit, crudely molded, too narrow, but I love that kit because it has fantastic box art. So I'm not gonna try and push these together too much, because I get the feeling if I do, I'll never get them apart again. But that's suitably wide. You can get a Merlin in there. I don't see any problems there. I think it should be a little bit more parallel as it goes out towards the nose, then pinch in, but there's nothing there that I find terribly offensive or upsetting, let's put it that way. Dear BBC, I was terribly upset and offended by this model. So, and we'll do that after the show. So overall, for £8.50, I think that's a pretty impressive kit, with caveats about those stringers, about the spinner, about the canopy, and just getting the colour of the code letters for the Night Fighter wrong. But other than that, we're going to put this one together and see what it looks like, and obviously report back on the Facebook page. Just let's play catch up with everybody who's watching. Hello, Ian Hartup, Ian Goldstraw. It's an Ian convention tonight. Rob Monfee, Douglas Hunter, Dougal McWoogle, Martin John Henry Smith, Joe Pestaglici, he stumbled on that one, Tom Patrick Houston, Paul Milligan, Lee Suter, Philip Jones, Dennis Tennant. Hello, everybody. Yeah, John Patrick Houston says Irish Air Corps flew the Mark II. Yeah. Now, were I building this model for myself, I would probably reach for a set of Joe Maxwell's Max decals that I've got salted away in the decal collection here, and I'd build it as an Irish Mark II. But because this is likely to end up as a display model somewhere, I'll have to build it straight from the box. Having said that, as I say, if I do build it as the Night Fighter, I am going to correct the color on those codes, because why wouldn't you, really? So other than that, I'm actually really impressed with it. Certainly on the surface detail looks to be correct. So watch this space as we continue building this over the weekend and reporting back to you. Ian Hartup says, is there an issue with the armor kits? I haven't built the armor kits, Ian, but I think these are servicing two different markets. The armor kit is more of a modeler's kit and is priced accordingly, whereas this Zvezda one is very much more of an entry-level one, especially for inexperienced modelers or junior modelers, and it's designed for ease of construction. As I say, this is designed that you can actually stick it together. You can actually put it together without any glue. So they're kind of servicing different markets. I haven't got around to building any of the armor ones yet, and they are on the bucket list. I've got the Wildcat here, but as I say, different ends of the market. And I've just noticed actually they do give you two instrument panels, one with the molded detail and one a completely flat one. So it appears to be well thought out, but as ever, the proof is in the pudding. So on that note, we'll keep it nice and short tonight. Apologies for no midweek show, and we were going to try and do a pop-up live yesterday from the Tank Museum, but the Tank Museum was absolutely heaving. In fact, Drew and I will talk about that on Sunday, because we had some thoughts as to whether or not you can actually kind of do a model show with those kind of numbers. And on Sunday, I've forgotten to do it tonight, but on Sunday, apologies to Mr. Hills, on Sunday, I'll also be able to report back on my experiences with the dry brush paints from Ammo. These are some that I got off of Mr. Hills at Antics, and it's light olive green and medium green, because I build so many green tanks, and gunmetal, which I think is going to be quite useful for bringing out the worn edges on tracks, which is something else we'll talk about on Sunday as well. And Mr. Hills also gave me Starship Filth from the Shaders range. I've not used any of this new Ammo mix stuff, so I'm actually looking forward to giving this a whiz over the weekend and then reporting on it properly on the Sunday show. And also have a quick chat about some of the other things that I bought from the shop at the Tank Museum. So on that note, I'll leave you for this evening. Thank you for watching. I hope you've learned something tonight about the little Zvezda Hurricane, and you'll be seeing more of it over the weekend as we start putting it together. Other than that, we will be back on Sunday night talking about our projects, modeling news, and a theme of some sort. We'll think of something. So on that note, it just remains for me to say thank you very much. Take care, stay out of trouble, and we'll see you on Sunday. So bye for now.